Hi, Jacinta.
Right.
Thanks for coming in to talk to us today. Obviously, we're going to speak a little bit about your journey with spirituality and what that means to you, and the kind of things you experience, and how those kind of impact on your everyday life. So, thank you for your time. And I guess just to jump in and ask you, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jacinta. I'm nearly 38. And I have a husband and 4 children. We're a combined family. I grew up in the hut where I live now. I work full-time for a recruitment company in Wellington. It's probably mostly it.
Cool. So no spiritual work as such at the moment.
No, not really. Just quietly plugging away.
Sure. Cool. And can you tell us, where did kind of your journey begin? What kind of things did you start to experience? Was it kind of like wake up one morning and everything switched on, or was it like, little things over a longer period of time, or how did that work for you?
I think it's probably a mixture. So some of it, I could probably divide it into 2 parts. The first part is probably the things that were happening that I wasn't aware were happening. In hindsight, now I know that they were. And then there are the parts that I was 100% aware of and very conscious of. So the first part, and it's been interesting because I write, I blog a little bit, and so as I've gone back and read some of those over recent months, it was happening well before I had any awareness of it. So when I read back on those, I can see that there are things happening. Just I'm being led to certain people or certain experiences, or things are happening that were clearly guiding me to a point, a peak, so to speak. Several years ago now, probably a huge catalyst of sort of the beginning of things was a few years ago, my sister and I decided to go very sort of on a whim up to Gisborne, up to the East Coast, because my brother was in a little bit of crisis, and I'd never met him before, but sort of thought that was probably the time to do it if it was going to happen. And my sister and I, my half-sister, we had never spent more than maybe a couple of hours together, ever. We didn't grow up together, and it was a bit of a weird situation. But we jumped in the car and went on this, stupidly long drive to Gisborne together. And I think that's sort of where it all kind of started to happen. So I met my dad on that trip for the first time. I went to our family land for the first time, and I think that's where it all sort of started. Falling from.
And was that more like a connection with the land, or connection with spirit, or?
I think a bit of a combination, land, spirit. I think I never really fit in or belonged with my own family unit that I was raised with. And meeting my dad, although I never was one of those people that had a really sort of strong pull to meet him. I didn't have any sort of, I've always said I don't really feel like I have a gap, and if I did, I never felt like he was the person that was going to fill it for me. But turns out, actually, I wouldn't say I had a gap, but we are so alike. And meeting him really made me make sense with myself. And so I think that actually meeting him did not feel something, but it kind of like almost sort of connected me to myself. I suddenly realized why I was the way I was, why I do the things I do and where I get those things from, where I came from, and how I fit in the world, because my siblings and I are also really similar. And so kind of understanding that, oh, actually these are my people, this is my tribe, this is where I fit, I think made me feel a little less kind of weirdly not belonging to a place.
Yeah. Okay. And so things started like to change from that point, and where it sounds like they might have been a little bit stealthy, like just tiny changes that you didn't really take a lot notice of. Did things started like accelerating then?
Yeah, again, sort of still quite slowly, and still, you know, at the time, I would say I probably, like, I wouldn't have called it spirituality at the time. I would have just said that I had a sort of intense, like, pull towards things, or a kind of a need to go and do a certain thing, like a real intense feeling to follow a kind of inkling or a feeling to do something. And it could have been, you know, just, I mean, gosh, anything. I've since then have had a real, really strong need to get to the sunrise and the sunset, either or. Like, I'll wake up really early one morning, you know, sort of 5 a.m. for no particular reason, and just, I've got to go, and I've got to get up high, and I've got to get there, and I've got to see the sunrise. And so, you know, it'll be 6 o'clock and pitch black, and I'm out somewhere with my coat on, just hanging out, loitering, waiting for a sun to rise somewhere. And even then, I felt really powered up by that, really filled up by it. And I, you know, I didn't really know at the time that had any sort of significance. I just knew that if I went and saw the sunrise, I felt really good. And I felt really powered up.
Okay, cool. So if you followed like this, I guess some people might call it intuition, have you followed this intuition or these feelings every time? Or what's kind of happened if you haven't, for whatever reason, if you've chosen not to, or you haven't been able to for whatever reason?
I think, so definitely I have not in instances. And that's when I think things have gotten really tough. So and that's sort of where, so this time last year, I came to a real sort of, I just wasn't feeling great. I was feeling really dim, is probably the best way to describe it. It's feeling just not great at all. And I think that was a series of just not listening to my intuition, not doing the things that I should have been doing. From the tiniest things of not going and seeing the sunrises, not kind of following that strong intuition to get back to the coast to go and see my dad, or you know, even just to kind of have better self-care. I just was not listening to those messages, and to the point where I was getting tinnitus, because that's what happens now when I don't listen. I get tinnitus. My ears ring until I listen. And I just, at the time, I didn't have that connection that that's what it is. Now I know that it's saying, hey, you're not listening. So I'm going to ring in your ear until you follow your intuition and do the things that you know you should be doing. But at the time, I just thought I was, you know, run down, burnt out, whatever you want to call it.
I'm getting sick again, or because all this stuff's going on and whatever, and it's too much, and this is the way it's going. Whereas, what was kind of like your aha moment where you kind of went, oh?
The aha moment, actually, it was probably, about a year ago now, so maybe just a little more than a year and a half, something like that. I was feeling really bad, just not, I would definitely have said burnt out at the time. And I actually had sought out Māori healer, traditional healer. Well, sort of actually new age / traditional. She does a range of healing. And I'd originally gone to her a few years ago for yoga lessons. And she had started offering a range of sort of healing. And I booked a session with her, and I went to her, and I mean, that was the aha moment.
Right.
It was profound. She told me that my Wairua was basically completely disconnected and sitting, hanging out over my shoulder, my left shoulder, that I'd had pain in for months and months and months and months and months and months.
Right.
And it was almost sitting on there, and it was detached, and I mean, 101 things. And that was everything that she said. I just thought, yep. It's probably right.
Right, 100%. Yeah.
And that was kind of the beginning of the whole sort of waking up, getting in touch with intuition, listening for things, realizing that the reason that I need to get out of the room with the crystals in it is because they're literally screaming in my ears and things. That was pretty much the beginning of all of the things.
Okay, cool. And so, everyday life, you've said basically you're working in a corporate environment, you have family, you have, I guess what people would class as normal stuff, bills to pay, houses to clean, all this kind of stuff going on. So how do these gifts, would you call them gifts? How do they fit in with all of that stuff?
So yeah, I mean, I'm very normal, I think. Normal. Yeah, I mean, I'm very much at the beginning of my sort of journey, I guess. And I, through work with my my tribe, my spiritual tribe, I know that my gifts have something to do, and again, I'm not fully there yet, so I'm not entirely sure what that looks like, but I know it's in my it has something to do with using my voice for other people potentially. And so I'm probably not in that kind of category of being a somebody who kind of looks and feels like somebody who's quite spiritual. I guess I have a sort of a very stealth, low-key sort of skill that I can maybe help people come to certain conclusions, like a kind of a whisperer of some kind. But in every day, I find it's really about tuning into intuition and just listening to the nudges. And a lot of what I think the last 12 months has been for me is about just kind of doing a little bit of healing of some things that have, now that I'm aware of them, and when they pop up, when I'm sort of triggered, not defaulting to those messages that I would have had before. So, for example, my dialogue was, you are alone, you need to do it on your own. That was, so whenever anything in my world would happen, my automatic response was, you're alone, you need to do it on your own. Which perpetuated being alone and needing to do it on my own. And so even just knowing that I'm not alone, because I have people that love me and support me, but also I now am aware that I'm supported by spirit or guides or whatever.
Your crew, whatever you want to talk about them. Yeah.
I just don't have that feeling anymore. I know that that's not true. And so I don't have that same. And so that's not necessarily something that I'm doing. It's just something that when those things pop up, I say to myself, no, you're not alone.
Yeah.
You've got all these people, you've got fierce wahine up here, you're all good, you'll power through this and you're not alone actually.
Yeah.
And these people have been around you for a long time. But other than that, yeah, it's really just, it's following the niggles, it's listening to the ringing in the ears, it's getting to see the sunrises. And I find that the other thing for me is that kind of sometimes, and I know it's sort of not necessarily the way, you know, they kind of say you need to, I have this thing that sits on my wall and it's a Lauryn Hill lyric and it says, how you going to win if you ain't right within, which I think is totally true.
Yeah.
But also sometimes I need to manage and clear my external clutter to be able to have any of that, to be able to deal with anything inside. And I don't know what it is, but I don't know whether it's a feng shui thing or an energy thing, but sometimes when I get really just stuck, I just need to kind of clear some things out, and then all of a sudden it's like my mind and voice can kind of be heard again. It's sort of like it gets a little bit like pushed up the back of the closet if there's too many external things floating around.
Yeah.
So actually for me, a big part of being more sort of spiritually connected is actually about managing my life more efficiently, because when I'm not using, when I don't have a sort of extreme cognitive load thinking about things constantly, you know, what's for dinner, the grocery shopping, whatever it is, I can be still and I can not think and I can not have 100 thoughts floating around my head. And so I have moments of quiet where Tilly's talk to me.
Yeah. That's interesting, right? So what do they say?
Well, they don't talk to me in words. This is the thing. I don't get a sort of clear message. We just have a bit of a vibe. I know it's talking to me. I mean it's tweeting. I don't hear words. But so that will happen, and then usually something else will happen.
Right.
So the tui will usually not sort of say, you need to go to the cemetery and visit your nana. The tui will chirp, you know, maybe in the morning, and then in the afternoon my sister will call and she'll say, oh, well, have you been to the cemetery? And I'll be like, oh, okay, that's obviously what needs to happen here.
Yeah.
Go and do that. Or something like that will happen. It's all a bit of a sort of a series of events and cues that happen together in a string.
So it's almost like, or would you say rather, it's almost like the two is going, hey, so just to know something's going to happen today, you know, it's going to be a good day, but something's going to happen. And then it's almost like you kind of go, oh yeah, something's going to happen today. And then you're kind of more aware, because you're saying you get all that external stuff, but it kind of puts the thought here kind of thing instead of around here somewhere.
Exactly. It puts it right. That's exactly what it does. It's like a little heads up, or a little kind of like literally a little chirp to go, hey, just, you know, keep your little antennas up.
Yeah.
And so when that sort of little message pops up that I do understand, for whatever that is, and it comes in all kinds of forms, I go, yeah, that was it. Cool.
Awesome.
Got it. And off I go to go and do the thing.
That's cool though. That's really cool, eh? Just like linking in with the tuis, specifically the tuis in that way.
Yeah, really specifically. And they're very, what's the word? I mean, it's very demanding. It's always, you know, there's always this little like delightful bird song. And whenever it happens, it's quite an aggressive sort of
you know that there's a change of tone type thing.
Yeah.
That kind of makes you go, oh, that was different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting.
It's very bossy. That's what I would say. It is always bossy.
It's the bird equivalent of, come on.
Yeah.
Listen up now. Attention here. Oh well, if you're gonna have a signal, that's a pretty sweet one.
Yeah. It definitely always usually comes in a more of a often in an audio form. If it's not a TUI, it'll be you know, a particular podcast or something will pop up in my sort of things you should listen to, or, you know, just something really out of the blue. Like if anything like that ever happens, I'm like, oh, I've never listened to that person before or something like that. I'll usually be like, okay, well, let's see why this is dropped in here. Let's have a little listen to that and see what that's about. Because quite often it's those types of things that will have something in there that I needed at the time, or it's usually got some kind of message in there. Yeah.
And does it, you know, maybe give you another aha moment, or help with a release of something, or, you know, jump you to, oh, and if you want to know more about this, you can go do that, and so that then resonates with you, or kind of a mixture of all those different things?
A mixture, but usually it's all stepping stones. Stepping stones to something at the end of somewhere.
Are you enjoying the journey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much on the way, for sure. I mean, interestingly, things have been really quiet over COVID. I guess that's not surprising though, because I've been isolated and not out and about or anything. But also I've been doing a lot of that sort of clearing external clutter and kind of, you know, using that time to do what everybody else has done and clean out my pantry. But yeah, it's usually leading to something. It's usually building, and I just roll with it now. I'm pretty non-resistant. Just kind of go. And every time I mean, sometimes it happens so rapidly. You know, I'll wake up in the morning. I mean, one weekend I woke up in the morning with this overwhelming need to go and see my healer. So she only does sessions 2 times a week. And this was sort of 6:45 on a Saturday morning. I mean, she's not going to have any appointments for that day. That's ridiculous. And so I just emailed her at 6:45 when I woke up. And, you know, because she gets it. So I say, hey, just woke up, strong feeling to see if you've got any appointments. Someone had just cancelled the night before. 10:30 the night before. There was one appointment free. She had been thinking of me anyway. So off I went to go and see her. And then it just set off this whole chain of events over the weekend. You know, found Tui's talked to me, found a message, wrote it left for me probably for years, that it was just hanging out, waiting. And that was just a completely, you know, like that was a very condensed sort of version of some of the things that happen. And then some of them are over, you know, stretched out periods of time. But I mean, that one in particular was a real whirlwind. And it was a little bit of sort of Nancy Drew investigative work as well, of me saying, you know, ringing my sister and saying, oh, do you know anything about this? And then her saying, well, I don't, but you should go and do this. And, you know, and it's like a spiritual treasure hunt.
That's a great way to describe it, actually. Sometimes it's a little like those breadcrumbs, isn't it? And you choose whether to follow the breadcrumbs or not and see where they lead you, type thing.
Yeah.
Quite annoying when they run out though, when they all of a sudden you have left to figure it out by yourself, just that gap. You're like,
that is definitely the most frustrating thing. You know, I'll sort of get to a place and I'll be like, okay. And then nothing. What?
Radio silence.
now.
Yeah.
Or I have one day I went to the bookshop to buy a book, and I didn't buy a book. The book wasn't there, but a tarot deck talked to me. I'd never sort of gotten amongst the tarot cards before, so there was no particular reason why I would never have gone and picked up tarot cards. Like, never in a million years. Like, I don't, at that point, I would even say I was fearful of the tarot cards. So definitely not something that I would have gotten amongst. But, you know, I was like, okay, I guess you're coming home with me. Got the tarot cards, took them home. And so I've just been sort of, you know, I just pull a few now and again. I just sort of dabble. When I go to bed at night, you know, I'll just pull a card and see what's happening, see what it says. And so I've been in I haven't touched them in a few weeks actually, because I'm in a real holding pattern.
Yeah.
Where it just keeps telling me the same thing all the time, but with nothing else. So, you know, no guidance, just the same thing, to the point now where I'm like, oh, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't pick you up because you're annoying. Like, you're frustrating. And I get that. I've heard you for the last 2 months tell me the same thing, but I don't know how to do what you want me to do. So we're in a bit of a stalemate, I think.
Oh, one of those Mexican standoffs where you're like, okay, I'm listening, but you need to give me the something.
Yeah, I need just a little bit more.
Oh, okay, cool. Hey, so you mentioned, you know, you're going to a bookshop to pick up a book. So I wanted to ask you, I know you say you've just started on the journey, but for people who are, you know, still a bit, you know, very, 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 very new, are there any kind of books, resources, podcasts, anything in particular that you might suggest may help them?
So one of the people that actually really towards the beginning, and one of the people that fell into my sort of podcast life, and this one I know was very specific because I was stuck in traffic, and it was one of those, I mean, I was sitting in traffic for about an hour and a half, and this was right at the beginning, and I remember thinking, no, this is great. This is an opportunity to listen to a podcast. And I did a real Russian roulette because I was driving. So it was a real kind of, and, you know, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And it was actually an Oprah Super Soul Sunday.
Okay.
So I actually find Oprah Super Soul's pretty good generally. She's got some real gems in there. But it was Oprah featuring Gabby Bernstein, and she really resonated with me. I really vibed with her. I really heard a lot of her messages.
Yeah.
And I found her really helpful. I don't so much get amongst her kind of more like off the shelf marketing sort of things.
Yeah.
But it is actually her who has that trigger of, I'm alone, I'm unsupported, I need to do it on my own. And so it was actually her who made me realise, oh yeah, that's me, that's what I do. And so I actually found her really helpful.
Okay.
Any
particular book, or mainly just that podcast? Because she's come up a bit recently, which is quite interesting. Like, a few people have mentioned her as being, you know, one of the people that they read one of her books and found them, you know, quite easy to kind of digest and had some really key messages in them for them. So that's quite interesting. She's coming up quite a bit.
It'll be because she's got loads of online content. People have been isolated. No, so definitely podcasts for Gabby. She features with a ton of people. So I find that she has a sort of few key messages, and so it does get a little bit repetitive. But I mean, she's definitely one of those sort of modern faces.
Yeah.
And she's got a great sort of a sort of coming back to her spirituality story, which I think is really interesting. And yeah, so she's probably was one of the early ones. But there's definitely nothing that I have done some reading, but I think nothing that I could specifically say has been particularly profound. It's more my information reading has come more in chunks.
Yeah.
Usually through podcasts or sort of blogs, that kind of, but mostly podcasts actually, definitely.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
I find the Rachel Hunter and Emma Milden podcast quite good. I think it's called the 111 podcast, or the 1111 podcast. It's actually quite good. It's actually quite a good podcast.
I have to check it out. Awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us just now?
Not really. I think more than anything, one of the things that I've noticed since I've sort of tapped into my superpowers, or whatever you call it, is one of the things I've really noticed is that the people that crop up now in my sort of everyday life who sort of pull their everyday cloaks off and they're, witches by night, or brewing over cauldrons, and or they're healers, or they're sort of super meditators, and just it's been really interesting how there was sort of none of these people really in my realm, and now suddenly they crop up in the most unsuspecting places. So I think, if you do have a little bit of something brewing and you kind of maybe think, no one, it's scary, or people will think I'm weird, or whatever. People 100% think I'm weird. I've got, especially some of my work colleagues, bless them, they're fully accepting of it, but they'll have a little lull when funny little things happen, or and when I ring home because I'm out and I remember that it's a full moon and I ask somebody to put my crystals out to charge or something like that, I definitely still get some weirdness. But I think if you kind of embrace it, suddenly all of these people will appear. And all of these, what you need will just fall out of the sky, like literally. People will fall out of the sky, content will fall out of the sky, whatever it is. I'm pretty convinced that once you kind of follow your gut, follow your voice, the little voices or the nudges, that whatever it is that you need will be there. You just kind of have to be willing to jump off the ledge and do a bit of a leap.
Fantastic. Hey, so thank you for coming and talking to us today. That's been perfect, and it's been awesome to hear some about your journey, and hopefully we'll check back in some time. You can tell us what else has been happening then.
Sounds great.
So thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.